Jon Cooper, Ourlad's guide to the NFL Draft, joins us, 365 Sports, and appreciate Jon making time with us today, and always good to hear from him. What did you hear from the Quinn Ewers Pro Day in Austin this week, Jon?
Not much, to be honest with you. I've been too busy with, we have a guy that, monitored that, and he's been working with the to get the numbers. But we've been working on the guide nonstop.
Oh, that's right.
Any time to look at anything in the last couple of days. But, I think the workouts were as expected. That's all our guys said about it.
Well, what do you see from when you've watched him over the last couple of years? He seems to have a flawless throwing motion.
Who are you talking about now? Ewers?
Yeah, Quinn Ewers. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, I see inconsistency, to be honest with you. I think he's got the mechanics. He's been well coached, but there are some times where especially when he's off platform, the ball sails on him at times. I think he's had some struggles with flat out consistency, but the talent is definitely there.
Jon, the Titans have the number one pick, obviously. In your mind, is it Cam Ward right now, and then we can start trying to figure out what in the world the Browns are going to do?
Probably. Titans need a quarterback very badly. I at the same time, if it was us, I mean, we just did a mock draft for our guide, and we drafted Cam Ward. So, yeah, we're like everybody else. But there's a part of us and a part of our group that say, hey, let's bypass him and let's take the best football player in this draft and take a quarterback later on.
Jon, you started talking about Texas there at the beginning about Quinn Ewers. They obviously had like 20 guys that were working out as ridiculous, and I think we've asked you about a lot of them. But where does a guy like a Jaden Blue, the running back, where does he fit into the big picture? Because there's a lot of names being talked about, but he's not one that I've heard as often as a lot of the others.
We like him. Our guys, that we've done some things with him in terms of watching him. And the guy who does running backs for us, he has a pretty good feeling about him. He thinks he's a guy that's going to be more of a late round guy, but he's got a chance. He runs hard. We'll just have to wait and see.
He turned it over a few times, didn't he? Isn't that one of the things about him, that he didn't protect the football? When he got loose, it was over.
Yeah, speed. Definitely. He's a solid player. I take that back. I don't think we have late round on him at all. I'm looking right now. I mean, we've got him as potentially our draft range puts him as potentially a second round pick, late, but more likely a third. Our guy likes him a lot. He likes the speed. He likes, some of the elusiveness. He's only 196 pounds, but he runs a 4.38 40. And so he, like you said, he's gone. So I'm not going to, knock him down. In fact, we're a little higher on him than I think most people, because we were just talking about him. I'm just looking for his name on our list because we went back and forth as to where we wanted to put him. And we ended up with, a top of the third round grade.
Dante Thornton at Tennessee, 6'5", 200 pounds, runs a 4.37. The production maybe not there as much as some of the other Tennessee wide receivers, but he seems to be getting a lot of buzz right now. What's your assessment of him?
Well, there are so many receivers, in this draft that it's kind of hard to put him, at the top of the pile. We're a little bit down the line on him for sure. We just haven't seen enough what we could call production, to put him up there, real high. But hey, he's a player. And, we've got something like 38, 39 wide receivers that have grades that are draftable. But the group in itself as a whole is not that great.
Was there anything that came out of the Big 12 workouts last week that made it your way? I know we had another analyst on said that there's some ways they could improve the whole event, the lack of the star power actually participating, like Teterow, McMillan, Shedeur Sanders. Like Shedeur was there, but he didn't work out. McMillan had already worked out separately. So I guess they didn't have quite the star power, but was there anything that came from that you saw as beneficial to any prospects in particular?
No, not really. Our philosophy on pro days is you go there, you time them, height, weight, speed, medicals, all those kinds of things you're looking for. And, unless something comes out that is absolutely different from what they've done before, it really doesn't have as much of an effect. I mean, they go because, the scouts are there, but the guys that are the coaches and things like that, they're looking at the GPS speeds. They want to see the data from the season, and that is much more important. Now, if a guy shows up that pro day that's a 290-pounder normally and he's 370 or something crazy like that, yeah, they want to know that. They want to know if there's an injury. They want to know if their workout performances are not up to snuff. Why is that? I think if you remember right, Jalen Carter, the big defensive tackle, he was out of shape. And a lot of people dropped them down on their board dramatically. Well, that probably was a mistake. Look at what you saw as a football player on the field. And these other things are important, but they're not that revealing unless there's something dramatically different.
Where do you have I asked one of our other guests, where do you have Ollie Gordon ranked? I mean, he was a Heisman candidate 2 years ago. And then Oklahoma State was bad. And it seems like he's suffering a bit of the brunt of that, but he was healthy all year. He's still pretty fantastic, isn't he?
We like him. He doesn't have straight line speed that is what you would call elite, and I think that's the only thing that really knocks him down. He's a good back. He's got good power. He's got enough elusiveness that he can make people miss. He gets some yards after contact. He's 6'1", 226. He's a big kid. He's a nice back. And I think the Oklahoma State team was not what it's been, and so his productivity may have been down a little bit, but we still like him. We've got a grade on him that is, probably third, fourth round is, I think, the grade range we put on him, and we think he's a solid player. And he's another one we went back and forth on. Good year for running backs. And that's going to affect this in terms of where these guys go. Teams look at him differently. But, we've got a number of, I think, like 27, 28 guys with draftable grades. So it's a good year for running backs.
Desmond Watson from Florida had a pro day down in Gainesville, 6'6", 464 pounds. He did 36 bench press reps. He covered 40 yards in 5.93 seconds. I think that's a miracle. I mean, I don't know if any of us could run it right now. And then he also had a 25 or so inch vertical. What do you know about him other than the fact he's a huge human being?
Well, two things. There's two factors with him. I watched film on him because I got some of the same information earlier in the year, and I went and watched him. In the first quarter, he was dynamite. Mm-hmm. Second, third, fourth, not so much.
Yep.
And when I say dynamite, he got a push. He did a nice job. He's not a guy that was escaping and getting pressure on the quarterback, but he was playing the run. He was clogging up the middle, and he was doing a lot of nice things. We think he's a free agent. I think somebody's going to bring him into camp. I think what was the weight you gave me on that one?
464 pounds, I think.
Okay, yeah, that's about what we had. I thought you had said 406, but it's four. So he's still just as big as he was earlier. And I had a guy tell me, "Oh, you got to look at this kid. He's really this and that." And I watched him, and I think he'll get into a camp. Like you say, he's a huge, huge human being. But I think he's going to be rotational. Mm-hmm. He's not going to be a guy on the field all the time. I think somebody's going to bring him in, and I don't know, what they're going to do with him. But he's got some things. He's got some redeeming qualities as a football player. Let's put it that way.
I would think if you're going to play Philadelphia twice a year and you're in the NFC East, you bring him into camp because he could help you with that Jalen Hurts tush push or whatever you want to call it. Just stick him there. That gives you a better chance.
That's a good point. Well, if you get him and Carter on the field together, they might not get the whole defensive line on there, right?
No. John, I can't remember for sure last week. We normally have you on Wednesdays, but we were at Pro Day in Frisco, as Craig brought up. Did we ask you about Corey Black when he ran a 4.35, the cornerback at Oklahoma State last week in Frisco?
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah, he's been there for, I think it's his 4th year at Oklahoma State, but when somebody pops a number that maybe wasn't on our radar. I asked you about the young man at A&M, what was it? A&M.
Yeah, we looked at him. If he's 5'7", he's 5'7".
Yeah.
So,
he's very small, very spindly.
We looked at a little film, and that's going to be a negative on him. Corey Black, we do not have a lot of information on, other than the 40 time, and he's not, he's not in the top, what we would call group of guys that are draftable. Now, that doesn't mean somebody's not going to jump up and really like him, but that's kind of where we're at with him. We don't. The 40 times are 40 times. I've coached kids that running a 4.3 40, 4.35, 4.4 just means you get to the wrong place faster. So that's 40 times are 40 times, and they're an indicator of certain things, but they're not necessarily a great indicator of overall football skill.
Is there any philosophy on what you use when it comes to compensatory picks that are extra picks because you've lost somebody? Is that to fill out depth, or is that maybe you find somebody because you have those extra 3 to 4 picks in a draft?
Sometimes I think it works both. I think it works both ways. You can find somebody occasionally. There's a late round pick. I know these teams like to slot players, positions they want to draft. Let's say in the 6th round or 5th round, we would like to draft an edge rusher, and there's 5 guys that we want. We know that some of those guys aren't going to probably be there, but these are the 5 we would take. And if not, we're going to go on to another position. It may be a special teamer. It may be something that is a position that not necessarily need, but is a great football player. So we're going to take them there. So sometimes one of those guys that you've slotted that you would like to take is there for whatever reason. They drop down. Some guys dropped out of the draft. So you just never know. But for sure, teams that love special teams like to look at those guys with those later round, 6th, 7th round compensatory picks.
All right, so we've mentioned Cam Ward. You mentioned Cam Ward. Paul brought up Cam Ward. That appears to be the number 1 overall pick. Teams that pick up free agents like the Giants, no matter what they do or what they've done, do you feel like that's still going to be Shedeur Sanders or not?
The funny thing was when we did our mock draft, we have 3 different guys that are doing it. And, we're all over the place, from different parts of the country doing it and different interests, different teams we follow and whatnot. And the guy who was drafting for the Giants texted me during the draft, and he said, I'm 99% sure I don't want to do this, but I think I have to. And so Shedeur Sanders went to the Giants. So that's a really tough call. A part of me thinks that, a team maybe ought to think about bypassing and going ahead and taking a quarterback later on down the line that maybe not as highly regarded, maybe a Jalen Milroe, a Jackson Dart, somebody like that has some tools. Ewers, for example, is a guy that could fall in that category. Will Howard, take him later in the draft, take him where you think you can get him and work with that kid. And you've got Russell Wilson, let him play. And then let this guy learn and be mentored. I think that's what's going to happen no matter who the Giants take. And I think that's a wise strategy.
Why would people not do more like what Andy Reid did with Patrick Mahomes than not? Or is it just there's so much pressure to win now because people are so impatient?
I think you're. I think that's a good point there because we were talking about that the other day, and we were talking about all right, who's had some really good success with quarterbacks over the years, and we've said Green Bay Packers. What's the common denominator in all 3 of those great Packer quarterbacks? If you want to consider Jordan Love one, and we kind of do, we think he's going to be really good. They sat around for a while. Even though Favre was in Atlanta, Aaron Rodgers sat around for a while, and he learned. And I think that's a great strategy. I look at the Chicago Bears. Why in the world did not they have a veteran quarterback in the program last year instead of a Division II kid, Tyson Bagent, as your backup? Caleb Williams, no matter what, was going to get thrown to the wolves. And I don't think that was a wise decision.
One more thing. Paul, what was the note about Shamar Stewart?
He didn't do anything at the pro day because he's already been invited to the draft. But John, he doesn't have I mean, he's going to be a weird one because his metrics are off the chart, but his production as far as sacking the quarterback is pretty low. Now, he was on a pretty darn good defensive line last year, which includes Nick Skirton, who's also going to be a really high draft pick. But it's kind of surprising to me that he's already been invited to the draft, meaning that they expect him to be a first-round pick. But he doesn't, like, to me, numbers say he's a bit of a tweener.
Well, we've gone back and forth on him, and I've kind of finally decided after talking to the metrics people, things like his GPS, his quickness, his acceleration, he's got all the tools to be a great pass rusher, in terms of the metrics. And you're right, the production with him and Skirton, both, it is surprising that, as good a player as they are, and they really flash great skill. The thing about it in watching him play, though, he's close a lot. He gets pressure and sometimes uncredited pressure on quarterbacks. So there's a lot to like about him. He plays the run. He's a guy that NFL teams, some like to have a guy play edge and then slide him down inside the nickel. And there's a perfect candidate to do that, because one of the things teams need is inside pass rush. They need a push. They need somebody that can escape. If you can't double team both tackles. So one of those tackles is going to have a chance to work a move and do some things. And you get into those nickel situations, a guy like Stewart is going to have some value. Yeah, there's always a little risk. You don't know for sure if he's going to be, not going to be productive in the NFL. But I look at some guys like Odafe Owe. He didn't have a sack his senior year. Ravens took him in the first round based on just what I was talking about, the metrics, quickness off the ball, things of that nature. And the kid has developed into a pretty good player. He hadn't had a sack in a year and a half. Penn State. All of a sudden, bingo, he's in the NFL as a first-round pick. So, he's a kid. He's got a lot to work with. So I think he's going to be a good player.
One clarification. Ourlads.com, by the way, is the website. I've used them forever. You have your Ourlads Top 32 3.0. That's how you rank players 1 through 32, not so much where you see them being drafted, correct? Or vice versa?
Correct, exactly.
Okay.
That's why you've got Cam Stewart in our mock draft going number 1, and he's ranked probably 11th or 12th player. And we're generally, when we do a mock draft, it's how we would do it if we were drafting. And, obviously a little peer pressure got to us on the Giants. But, the Giants do need a quarterback, and having Wilson around to mentor is not a bad thing. So, he is the next best quarterback. I don't think it's necessarily close. So, but again, value-wise, we've got those guys more the mid-first round. And there's some people that don't have that even first-round value on those guys. But that's where we see them.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it, John. Great to have you on today. Jon Cooper, Our Lads Guide to the NFL Draft. Go to ourlads.com.